Well, good morning. It's so good to be with you again today on our Hump Day devotion. Pray that you're having a good week. Here we are during the middle of the week. It's downhill from here out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then we start a new week. So hope this broadcast today will be a blessing to you. So if you have friends on Facebook, share what we're doing with them. I think today is going to be special. I've had a lot of requests in the last few years, and especially recently, to tell stories of miracles that have happened to me and then to others. This past Sunday, we had evangelist Charles Gearhart in our church for Pentecost Sunday, and it was a really good meeting. We really enjoyed it. People were blessed with the word. They were blessed with laying on of hands and all those things, and we blessed him with a good offering. And after the morning service, my wife had prepared us a delicious meal, and we went back into the dining room there in the rear of the church, and we broke bread together. And after that, and time of talk and so forth, I brought him over into this building to show him this building because it's so historic, and there's been so much happened here through the years. And I just wanted today to start sharing some things that did happen here of 70 years ago, 80 years ago, 50 years ago. Excuse me. And one of the things that I was doing with Evangelist Gearhart was I took him back into my old office, the room I worked out of for probably 30 years or longer, and booked meetings and prayed with people and worked on sermons and things like that, you know. And so I have a lot of things back there that I've kept as for memories, and things that I use. I could go back there and use it today. And so while we were looking around in the room, I always like to tell people stories about Dr. Ward. William A. Ward was my prophet. He was my pastor for many, many years. We worked together 27 years doing meetings together. He came here and did meetings. I did meetings in their campground and things like this. And so I was just telling our brother, Brother Charlie, I call him, about some of the miracles, and I had a lot of different books and Bibles and things, and I come across these shoes, and I brought these shoes today to tell the story about the shoes. When Dr. Ward was, I think he was 69 years old, he got phlebitis. As you know, that's something with the blood in the legs, and he almost died. And he laid in the bed for 6 weeks, and they knew what it was, and he had a lot of Job's comforters, he said, come by and tell him he's going to die, and the people I knew had that died, and so forth and so on. And so one day, an evangelist from California, and his name was Danny Davis, and he was a protege of Dr. Ward. And so he called Dr. Ward and he said, God has told me to buy you a pair of shoes. And so he did. He bought him a pair of shoes. And the day that they were delivered, because Dr. Ward bought his shoes, I think from Massachusetts or somewhere, a special company. And so when they delivered the shoes, his wife put those shoes on. She opened the box at the door, and it was a tri-level. And so she's on the ground floor. She put the shoes on, and she began to dance before the Lord. And she danced up the steps, and she danced into his bedroom, and she danced all the way around his bedroom, shouting and thanking God for Dr. Ward's healing. Instantly, he was healed of that phlebitis. Instantly healed of that problem in his legs that could have killed him, but it hadn't, and wasn't going to, because God had work for him to do. I'm only telling you part of the story today because it just takes too long. But Sister Ward danced around that bed, and I was there before that. Just before that happened, I went up and spent, I think, about 3 days with them, just talking and praying and trying to encourage them some. And so when those shoes came, she danced around that bed, and instantly he was healed. He got up and he packed his suitcase. Now listen to this. He got up and packed his suitcase, and he drove, I think it was 6 hours, up into Michigan to hold a revival, and he held a revival all week long. Now I'm sharing this story with you because it goes on and on, but the Bible teaches us here in Matthew chapter 20, chapter 19 and verse 26. But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Whatever situation you're in today, God wants you to know it is possible for you to be delivered, to be healed, to be saved, to be blessed in some way. After Dr. Ward passed away, a few years after that, I think he was 83 years old or 84. They asked me, Sister Ward did, to preach the funeral. And it was quite an honor for me to minister the funeral of this man of God who had written 50 books, traveled in 84 nations. He had 7 doctor's degrees. He had a photographic memory. His lineage in Pentecost went all the way back to Azusa Street and even before. And so here I've trained under this man. And it was a wonderful 27 years. And so about 2 years after he passed away, I called Sister Ward and I said, is there anything left after your family got what they wanted that maybe I could have as a memory, a suit of clothes or something like that? And she said, well, I don't have anything like that, but I got a pair of shoes. And I said, okay, that's fine, because every time Dr. Ward came to our house, he held meetings in our church all those years. We had a special room for him to stay in. I always shined his shoes. He had a burgundy colored shoe, an oxblood I'd call it, he'd wear during the day, and then he'd have a pair of black shoes he'd wear to preach in. And so I would have his suits cleaned, dry cleaned here in town at the laundry, have his shirts laundry, do things like that for him while he was there, because he was a special man to me. He was my pastor, my prophet. And so I knew his shoes well. And so when I went out to Richmond, Virginia, to pick up the shoes, the nephew there, David, gave me the shoes, and it's these shoes right here. He gave me these shoes, and he said, Sister Ward said those were the shoes she wanted to give you. And so I looked at those shoes, and I was really disappointed, because I'd never seen those shoes before. I had never shined those shoes before, and I couldn't understand, why would she give me a pair of shoes? I never saw those before, or is she sure that those are the shoes that Dr. Ward wore? So I went home, I come home, and I looked at them, and I kept the shoes, and I would look at them, and I would think about it. So one day I called back out there, and I said, are you sure these are the shoes that Dr. Ward had? They don't look like anything I would shine. He would fuss at me, because I would get down as pastor of the church, I'd get down and shine his shoes. He'd fuss at me, but I called it an honor. I believe you ought to honor the men and women of God, don't you? I believe you ought to honor them with a nice meal or a good offering or a new suit of clothes. I believe you ought to honor them by calling them sir or reverend or pastor. And so I honored him in a way that I knew. We would wash his car. We would service his car. Brother Cumby here in our church would help me with the servicing of the car. And we did things like him for 27 years. And so I called back out there, and David told me, he said, well, let me just tell you, Sister Ward said they were the shoes. And when he said they were the shoes, I knew they were the shoes that she wore to dance around the bed, and the anointing of God came into Dr. Ward's body. Phlebitis was completely healed. He went on to, up in Michigan, hold the revival, and after that lived many more years, helped many more revivals. And I'm telling you that story today because everyone said he was going to die. The doctor said he was going to die, but God had something to say. God said, all things are possible to him that believeth. When I was looking at these shoes there and showing Brother Gerhard on Sunday, my wife said to me, I believe that you need to start taking stories like this and sharing with people, because people have needs and they need to see something. And so I kept that on my mind for a couple of days. And then I decided today to talk to you about these shoes. They're very special. I keep them in my old office. It's kind of a museum. You know, I've got all kinds of old stuff in there, books and Bibles and pictures and sermons and things like that. But I keep those in there because it gives me inspiration. I can go back there and I can say, the man that wore those shoes traveled the nations and preached the gospel in 84 nations, wrote 50 books, miracles after miracles after miracles. His book called Miracles That I've Seen is really kind of a life story for him. I want to tell you this story today so that you will get a hold of God. This verse says that with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. What seems impossible to you today? Does it seem impossible to you today for you to be healed of that cancer? Or impossible for you to regain eyesight in your eyes? Is it impossible for you to pay your mortgage or pay your bills or pay for your college tuition for your children to go to school? What's impossible for you? Does it seem impossible that you could get out of debt? What is it that today that's impossible? You say, well, it seems impossible. I can't get my husband saved. But God says it's possible. My children, I can't get them to go to church. God says it's possible. And I'm sharing this story, and I brought these shoes so that you could see them, so that you could understand these were the shoes. These were the shoes that an evangelist said, God told me to send them. And the wife said, God told me to put them on and wear them and dance around his bed. And God said to Dr. Ward, put them on and go to Michigan and hold that week's revival that you've got scheduled. That's what happened. God can do that for you today. I'm praying for you today that this story's helped. There's a lot more to it, but I just wanted to share that part of it with you. And I'm so happy that through the years, all these many years, I've had these in my old office, and I go back there and I could remember that God has something special for me too, that all my situations are not impossible. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank you for our audience today that is listening, watching this. I pray that it drop down in their heart because you have a miracle for them. You have something supernatural to happen for them. And it could be a healing of a headache today or a backache today. It could be anything today, pay a bill today. But I want you, Father, to right now, as I pray for them, to speak to their hearts and just say to them, believe me because all things are possible. Thank you so much, Father. Share this program with someone. You know someone that needs a miracle. Let them hear at least this part of the story because all things are possible to him that believe. And remember, your words have got a lot to do with it, a lot to do with it. My wife and I are here every Sunday morning, Cornerstone Church in Richlands on Fairfax Avenue. Our daughter opens up with praise and worship at 10:30. Come and be with us. You'll have a great time meeting the folks at Cornerstone Church. May God bless you. See you next time.